Hey everyone, welcome back to the lab. Today we've got the third and probably the most exciting episode in our series on mysterious retro tubes and indicators. Get ready for some vibrant glow discharge lamps with an absolutely mesmerizing fire-like glow. Some of these don't just light up, they can actually do the math. I'll also show you some cool life hacks with these tubes that lead to completely unexpected results. But before we dive into this fresh batch of techno nostalgia, I have a quick and important update. First of all, a massive thank you to all my viewers. You are the reason I make these videos. If you love the content here, channel membership are now live. You can support the channel directly by just hitting that join button down below. Next up, one of subscribers saw my previous videos on tubes and decided to send me even more of them. I just couldn't leave this off camera, because there is some seriously cool stuff in this box. The first thing that caught my eye were these panel mount tube holders, complete with different types of bulbs inside. There are also a few vacuum tubes, various incandescent bulbs, and these massive fuse holders, clearly meant for high voltage. Oh, and there is a housing with a red optical filter. We've got some larger 220 volt lamps, and even a spark gap like this one. That will be fun to test out. A huge thank you for this awesome addition to my collection. Finally, I have a working bulb for this socket, so we can see how it was actually meant to glow. This package couldn't have arrived at a better time, because some of these specimens are going to be the stars of today's video. They come in all sorts of shapes, size and colors. People call them by different names: glow discharge tubes, gas discharge indicators, or simply the neon bulbs. If you've ever noticed the little light in your power strip flickering in a weird way, not quite like an LED, that's a neon bulb right there. And honestly, they are probably some of the most mysterious and aesthetically pleasant lamps I've ever seen. I first saw a neon bulb shaped like a flickering candle flame at a friend's house when I was a kid. It totally mesmerized me. That orange discharge just looks like nothing else. Some neon bulbs have this really mysterious flashing behavior. They don't react to magnets, but they seem to follow their own hidden rules, which sometimes even depend on whatever else is plugged into the same outlet. These bulbs are fascinating, because they have two differently shaped electrodes. Only the electrode connected to the negative pole, the cathode, actually glows. By flipping the polarity, you can get two different types of glowing, a solid circle or an outline. Now here we have two semicircle electrodes. This is the Soviet EN21. It was used in electric stoves and was built to withstand seriously high temperatures. Wiring this up is pretty straightforward. You just need a high voltage and a current limiting resistor. To power it, I threw together a simple circuit, a push-pull inverter on a transformer that outputs anywhere from 150 to 400 volts. But I really wouldn't recommend turning the lamp on without that resistor, unless of course you want to see a miniature lightning. Don't try these experiments at home, guys. By the way, if you wire two of these in parallel, only one will light up. That's because when the first tube strikes, the voltage drops, and the second one just can't start. To let them both glowing, you need a separate resistor for each tube. Back before LEDs were everywhere, people used these red neon bulbs housed with a rectangular window. When wired in series, these bulbs can produce random short flashes. They don't react to anything, not magnets, not metal objects. They just pulse to their own mysterious rhythm. Maybe I can build a pretty neat pulse generator out of them. There is a special blinker bulb that behaves similarly. It has a bimetallic strip inside and gives off a lovely blue-violet glow. When I was a kid, our vintage Christmas lights were built around this. The bimetallic contact heats up and closes the circuit periodically, giving you that classic cycle on and off blinking effect. Then we have a phosphor-coated neon bulbs. There is still run of a glow discharge inside, but the visible light actually comes from the phosphor coating. Because of that, they can glow in a pretty much any color, not just orange. Here is a TLZ, which glows green, as the Z in its name implies. Then there is TLG. The last letter means it should be yellow, but it ended up green anyway. It looks like the phosphor in this one had just completely degraded over the years, judging by the weird glow. We'll come back to this type of tech later in the video, because this eventually evolved into full-blown display panels. Here's another really cool neon tube, the Thyratron. Specifically, this is the MTX-90. Besides an anode and cathode, it has a third, control pin. You can actually build a sensor switch out of this. If you wire a regular lamp in series with the Thyratron, hook a high-value resistor up to the control pin and plug it all into the wall outlet, and if you tap that control pin, it triggers the lamp to turn on. Just a heads up, if you try this DIY, do not forget that resistor, or you're gonna get a nasty shock. Thyratrons aren't just indicators, they can actually switch light loads. And beyond Thyratrons, there are tons of other neon tubes that work on active electronic components, amplifiers, flip-flops, and even logic circuits. And all of it runs on that sweet neon glow. One of the most fascinating tubes out there is a Dekatron. It has a circular anode in the center, surrounded by a bunch of cathodes, 10 main ones that defined its state, plus 2 sub-cathodes tucked between every main pair. By feeding pulses to the sub-cathodes, we force the charger to jump to the next cathode in a specific direction. This was used to count pulses, and these tubes were the brains behind ancient calculators and even early computers, way before solid-state silicon took over the world. This simple circuit uses AC 50 Hz as the pulses for the Dekatron to switch. By the way, this is how some of retro clocks worked. They just rely on a frequency from power lines to count the time. So yeah, neon tubes don't just glow, they can literally do math. And now the moment you've been waiting for, the legendary gas discharge digital displays, better known as Nixie tubes. The first time I ever saw this was in a vintage grocery scale, just huge glowing neon digits. They come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. The most popular ones are side view tubes. You mount these vertically. And they're the classic choice for building Nixie clocks. This larger indicator is a EN14. A fun fact here, each tube has 2 decimal points, one on the right and one on the left of the digit. Also, the number 5 in this tube is literally just the number 2, flipped upside down. They probably did it to save money on electrode tooling. Gotta love the retro optimization. Its little sister is the EN16. It also has 2 dots, but thankfully a properly shaped number 5. There is an even bigger version, called the EN18. However, it's super rare and really expensive, so unfortunately I don't have one in my collection yet. Some Nixie clock builders add an LED underlight into these tubes. It ends up looking a little something like this. There is also another style, top view indicators, where you read the numbers through the top of the glass, opposite the pins. Like this EN12 for example. These were super convenient to mount flash and side test equipment and instrument panels. They manufactured a huge variety of this. The EN1 comes dressed in a ceramic base. Another quirky thing about it is its super fine wire mesh. This was definitely an early design. The digits don't strike quite as eagerly as in the newer models, and it makes this distinct buzzing sound while it runs. The EN2 is absolutely tiny. It has a bizarre quirk too. Instead of the number 1 lighting up, the whole background glows. Honestly, I am not sure if that's an intentional design, a broken tube, or if I just messed up the wiring somewhere. I couldn't find a single mention of it in the datasheets. The EN7 has symbols instead of numbers. Perfect if you wanted to build a neon-lit multimeter. If you mess around with incorrect wiring on some Nixies, especially the big ones, you can trigger some really unique artifacts, like making the base of the pins glow. If you use the decimal point electrode as the anode instead of the mesh grid, and try to light up a large digit, the current density running through the tiny dot will exceed its critical limit. Instead of a normal dot, you'll get a bright blue blob. And if you apply reverse voltage to the mesh grid, the grid itself lights up instead of the digits. You can play around and get all sorts of unexpected parts of the tube to glow. In some specific tubes, you might even spot a pink or purple dot. Here's another variant, the EN13. It's a linear bar graph display that reacts to signal levels. I threw together a simple 1-transistor circuit that turns this EN13 into a really cool audio view meter. And finally the heavy hitters, gas discharge matrix displays. The IGG1 32x32. These were made right here in Ukraine, back in 1992, brand new, still in their factory wrapping. Every single panel comes with a datasheet featuring a unique serial number. I also gave some rare pieces from 94 and 95. I might show those off in a later video. They used to tile these little squares together to build massive screens. Were used in factories, airports, and even nuclear power plants. These indicators also rely on phosphor to glow. You've got 32 anodes and 32 cathodes in here. They require a high voltage pulse, nearly 400 volts, to ignite a pixel, and then a lower sustained voltage, around 200 volts, to keep it glowing. If I try applying voltage across one anode and cathode, the corresponding pixel lights up. You can wire up several, but only one random pixel will actually fire. It's the exact same issue we saw earlier with the basic neon bulbs. I designed a circuit with anode and cathode drivers, controlled by an ESP32. Sends a 32-bit value to a breadboard, loaded with 4 shift registers, and currently output random pixels in a 2x9 format. Honestly, I got exhausted trying to wire up any more driver channels. But these panels are incredibly finicky. Feed them slightly the wrong signal and the pixels stop listening to you and just start doing their own thing. Fearing I might burn the screen out with the wrong operating modes, I'm gonna pause my experiments for now. I really need to dig deeper into the timing diagrams and the driving algorithm, because this is not simple. If you guys are into this and want to see a deep dive video specifically on this, drop a comment down below. I actually have another variant of these panels, the IGG1 64x64M. And check this out, it's a bicolor panel. Pixels are half the size, and the green and red dots are arranged in a checkerboard pattern. By the way, this technology makes full color image possible. The Soviets actually made full RGB panels with all 3 color components, which were used to build massive video walls. Unfortunately, they are extremely rare, and I've never seen one in person, though I really want to. This is fundamentally the exact same plasma display technology that paved the way for early color flat-screen plasma TVs. Let's see if I can get a couple of pixels to fire up on this one too. Just look at these colors. Today we went through dozens of tubes, each with its own piece of history. But we've barely scratched the surface of what light trapped inside glass can actually do. Some of these tubes hide way more secrets that meet the eye. In upcoming episodes, we've got a lot more mysterious and discoveries waiting for you. Until then, let me know in the comments which tube was your absolute favorite. And if you want to push past the limits and see what's next, join the channel membership community. In the dark, it's always easy to see who glows.